What's going on, people? Welcome to an Emotion Football live stream. My name is Alam, and today we have a whole lot of news to catch up on. So I was doing this on a nightly basis during like peak free agency, but then the move started to slow down and life started to pick up. So we just kind of abandoned that. But we're back. Fortunately, I feel like with a week going by, there's like a sufficient amount of stuff to talk about from a week, similar to what we would have to talk about on a nightly basis during peak free agency. So we're going to be running through all the news. Before I get started, shout out to the 8 people watching live. Make sure you guys hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. I see you in here, Manj. Good to see you. But yeah, anybody watching this on replay after the fact, you have the same opportunity to show support, people. That's the best way to show your appreciation for content on YouTube. So with the formalities out of the way, we're going to get right into the news. First thing we have to talk about naturally, Cincinnati Bengals extending Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. They made the signing of Lucas Patrick today. And I actually think talking about the two things at once is pretty fitting because I think the conversation about Jamar Chase and T. Higgins is inevitably just not going to be about Jamar Chase or T. Higgins because there's not much to say about them as individuals. We know that they're amazing football players. We know that they're important, like they play premium positions. And we know that the contracts are worth it. Jamar Chase being narrowly the highest paid non-quarterback in the league is reasonable. T. Higgins making under $30 million a year is also reasonable. The conversation cannot be about those players because there's not much to say other than great players, important players, and you always want to be in the business of retaining top tier talent. When it comes to the Bengals, the entire conversation is actually about roster construction, the team, that particular organization, how they go about spending money, and their approach to just like everything. That's really where the conversation lies. And that's why I'm kind of happy that I waited until Lucas Patrick signed to have this conversation, because the signing of Lucas Patrick is very symbolic of what the Bengals are kind of putting or the position that they're putting themselves in by paying two receivers extremely expensive contracts. So, okay, thoughts. I think that the strategy to have Joe Burrow, T. Higgins, and Jamar Chase take up so much of the salary cap sheet is going to make roster building extremely difficult. What it'll mean is that they'll have to draft really, really well. And in the case of Cincinnati, that's kind of always been their reality. It's kind of just harsher than it ever was before now. But truthfully, I don't think it's a horrible thing for them that they gave out these contracts. I don't really think that the alternative is much better. If this was, let me see. If this was an organization that I think year in, year out just churns great talent, is consistently good at drafting, and is consistently good at putting a winning product on the field, yeah, I would say pigeonholing yourself this way financially is probably not the best idea. But it's the Cincinnati Bengals, man. Like, I don't think that really not having T. Higgins puts them all of a sudden in a great situation. Look, they've failed to draft defensive players for, I think, a good 4 years now. And even if they traded T. Higgins, they would still suck if that failure persists. The only way they get better, the only way at all that they get better, is if they get good at that. So ultimately, I think in both situations, the same thing holds true, which is that this team is going nowhere without drafting. I just think in one timeline, the situation is more harsh than the other. But I think the margin for error that you would get by not having T. Higgins, I don't know if that outweighs having T. Higgins. I think T. Higgins is unreal. I think he's a very unique kind of receiver, given how well he moves at his size. There's some pretty big receivers, but I think him and Mike Evans are really the only like ballers that are like 6'4" at this point. I think Marvin Harrison Jr. is also pretty tall. But yeah. Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of criticism about a lot of criticism aimed towards the Bengals. A lot of people that are very critical, or like not even critical, are very just like strong about the idea that this was a bad move. And I just don't think that's the case. You have to look at every decision an organization makes within the context of who they are as an organization. The Bengals are not this team that if they let go of T. Higgins, you're confident they're just going to go get another T. Higgins. Or if they let go of T. Higgins, they're going to know how to use that money to really maximize the money that they save and put a great team around Joe Burrow. Also, there's the fact that Higgins signed with Jamar Chase's agent, and Joe Burrow was campaigning for Higgins. So realistically, if you lost T. Higgins, you weren't going to have an easy time keeping Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow. Keeping them in one is one part of it, and then keeping them happy is the other part of it. So there were a lot of things in play when it comes to this decision. And I don't criticize, like, I'm not really upset at them for making this move. The Lucas Patrick signing is where I think that people would look at this and be like, see, look what has to happen. You don't get, you pay two receivers, you pay a quarterback. Now you have to get guys like Lucas Patrick. To which I say, you don't have to get guys like Lucas Patrick. My understanding of Lucas Patrick is this guy was on the Saints and the Bears, I want to say. I'm going to look him up right now. I'm pretty sure this is who I'm talking about. He was on the Saints for sure last year. I think before that, he was on the Bears. Yep, I wasn't wrong. So, yeah, basically, this guy's not good. I don't think he was a part of the Saints offensive line last year that was positive, and nothing was positive about the Bears offensive lines the 2 years before that. So the issue with the Lucas Patrick signing is not that they had to sign a cheap offensive lineman, because even in this stream, we're going to talk about other cheap offensive linemen that I think are going to be able to contribute in some way, shape, or form. If you look last year, the Eagles signed a fairly cheap offensive lineman in Mekhi Becton, somebody that they were able to get quite a bit of value from. The problem is the one they identified. Lucas Patrick is not it. So I think the evaluation of talent in Cincinnati is going to let them down before contract structure and cap management does at all. And if they ever get good at identifying talent consistently, because yes, they've had their moments, specifically this regime has had its moments, but if they don't get good at making talent evaluations consistently, they're not going to be good anyways. So if they suck, they may as well entertain their fans with T. Higgins, Joe Burrow, and Jamar Chase. With that out of the way, we're going to look at the next team, the Seattle Seahawks. Signed Cooper Kupp and then restructured Uchenna Nwosu. And the key thing there is that the kind of, you know what, I realized that his position isn't there. I'm going to edit that right now. But basically, by restructuring his deal, they moved some of his money right now on the cap sheet into the future. What that means is that, like, it's basically a mini commitment to Uchenna as a player, who is one of their starting edge rushers. So that kind of solidifies one of their spots on the depth chart, at least for this year. So yeah, they've made two, I guess, they've done two things that kind of show their plans. And the reason I think this is interesting is because both these spots were under consideration for them in the first round for me. And I think this almost wipes both positions off the board in terms of first round picks. Looking at this strictly from a mock draft standpoint, I think they still need long-term solutions at both positions. But when it comes to right now, they're going to roll with Cooper Kupp and then Uchenna Nwosu in week one. Those are going to be starters at both these positions. Okay. I've seen a lot of damning stats for Cooper Kupp when it comes to separation statistics, production statistics, injury history. It looks like Cooper Kupp has had a couple pretty rough years here. I want to say that Sean McVay's system is very favorable for receivers. I want to say that Matt Stafford is somebody he developed a lot of chemistry with. So it's kind of far-fetched to think that he's going to go to Seattle with Sam Darnold and a offensive coordinator in his second year and figure things out. That doesn't sound or feel right to me at all. I'm pretty scared. I really don't. I don't hate Cooper Kupp, but I think in this situation just doesn't feel right to me. When you make this transition from Geno Smith to Sam Darnold, what you're telling me is that you're thinking about the future. That's how I see it. You're thinking about, we don't want to pay a 35-year-old quarterback. We don't want to give this quarterback a commitment that we think is beyond his value. We're going to go get Sam Darnold, who's 28, but I mean, he's in the early stages of establishing who he is as a starting quarterback, because he really hasn't played much. So it kind of had the feeling of, especially because their coach is like 37, like Mike McDonald is young. It had the feeling of a long-term thing. But then they gave DeMarcus Lawrence, a 32-year-old player, a 3-year contract. Now they give Cooper Kupp, another 32-year-old player, a 3-year contract. And that makes me look at things really weird because those are the kind of moves a team makes when they're trying to win now. This isn't really like the Panthers signing Adam Thielen when it's just a one-off contract. You could tell they felt like they were in need of a veteran player to lead a young room. They're relying on Marquez Valdez-Scantling, who's 31, and Cooper Kupp, who's 32. It's just to me, there's no cohesive theme for the Seahawks offseason, and that's what I'm not a fan of. Like in a vacuum, I don't think bringing in Cooper Kupp is inherently a bad thing, or DeMarcus Lawrence. Even Sam Darnold in a vacuum, I don't think is that bad of a move. Reuniting MVS with the offensive coordinator that got the most of him last year, I don't think that's a bad move either. There's a lot of things that I'm not necessarily mad at that Seattle's done. But when you put them all together and then you try to piece together, hey, what is the vision here? What is the long-term goal? I simply just don't get it. Their contract with Sam Darnold is basically a 1-year deal. That's a long-term question mark. It's a short-term solution, but a long-term question mark. At receiver, they have 2 short-term solutions in Cooper Kupp and Marquez Valdez-Scantling. It's like they're from a roster construction standpoint, they have a lot of like win now push things going on. But then you look at the team and it's not a win now kind of a team. Seattle thoroughly confuses me. And for that reason, I'm not really optimistic about for them next year. Because what is this? What is, and then to put the finishing touches to this argument is like they've done nothing about their offensive line. Their offensive line still looks like a disaster. I want to make sure that I haven't missed any names, so I'm going to take a quick peek at their offensive line. But I'm pretty sure Charles Cross is the only player you could really count on last year. And I don't think they've done anything about it. Yes, the only 2 offensive linemen, they've only added 2 offensive linemen. One is not even like a consistent NFLer. The only offensive lineman they've added, Josh Jones, backup from Baltimore. So they're a team making a bunch of win now moves with a quarterback that's not established and no offensive line. This is just a tragic approach to building a team. And I think they've pigeonholed themselves into having to draft an offensive lineman in the first round. So I'm looking at the rest of their team. Yeah, this is bizarre. This is really, really bizarre. By the time they have an offensive line, both these receivers will probably be like in their mid-30s. JSN will be getting paid quite a bit of money. God knows where Sam Darnold is going to be. These moves stack up pretty strange to me. Next team we're going to look at, the Houston Texans. So they gave extensions to Derek Stingley and Danielle Hunter. They signed Ronald Darby, they signed Cam Robinson, and they signed Trent Brown. So what I'm pretty happy about for the Texans is that they started finally making moves on the offensive line. And I think these moves are more lottery tickets than Ed Ingram. I think Ed Ingram, that one's concerning because he hadn't played well. Laken Tomlinson, I think it's concerning because he hasn't quite played well. Trent Brown and Cam Robinson are 2 players that at the very minimum have had some good moments in the NFL. So I'm a little bit more encouraged with those moves. But all in all, I like what Houston has going on. I think they should pull a Philadelphia and take offensive linemen in the first and second round of the draft. I actually really like their team. Offensive line aside. And I think with their offensive line, they actually have enough lottery tickets. I think if you draft a couple young players in the top 2 rounds, they'll get some more lottery tickets. And so something is going to hit, right? Like if they were just relying on Laken Tomlinson and Ed Ingram, I'd feel horrible. But now you have Cam Robinson. Now you have Trent Brown. You have Juice Scruggs, and Jarrett Patterson from last year. You have Blake Fisher. You add a couple more prospects, and it's like you have enough pieces where somebody at some point somebody at some point is gonna hit. So um I'm feeling better about their offseason. And then you talk about extending Derek Stingley and Daniil Hunter. They're going to be having to do quite a bit of extending from this point onwards. They're having a pretty inexpensive offseason. And I think this is a bit of an indication of why that's the case, because you extended Stingley, pretty big money deal. They jumped up the corner market by $5 million. That's a really impressive deal from that agent. And then you paid Daniil Hunter a 1-year extension for like 30 plus a year. So that's a big money market setting extension. And you still have Will Anderson and CJ Stroud to go. So a ton of money is about to be shelled out to the core foundations of this roster that's already there. So I can see now, I was a little bit weary of why Houston was not really spending like that. But it makes more sense now. And if you think about them thinking that they have a established foundation and core pillars for their roster, the offseason of like having basically acquiring like filler pieces to the roster. So like a Ronald Darby, some of their pass rushers, a Daryl Taylor, Sheldon Rankins, offensively, you got Christian Kirk, Justin Watson, like these kind of just filler pieces to the roster, right? Guys that aren't starters, but can probably play 8 to 10 snaps a game and be productive. It starts to make things make a little bit more sense. So I'm liking Houston's offseason now. Again, if they for some reason stray away from drafting offensive linemen, then I'll go back to being like, hey, why would you build a super team with no offensive linemen? But under the assumption that that's going to happen, I'm liking what they're doing. I'm definitely liking what they're doing. Next team we're going to look at, you got the Chargers signing Mekhi Becton and Andre James. So the Chargers made a couple meaningful additions to their offensive line here. Actually going to start with Andre James just to get it out of the way. They paid Bradley Bozeman, their center from last year, but Bradley Bozeman is somebody that our resident In Motion Football Chargers fan, Jen Will, talked about how, he's somebody that's not good, that had to be upgraded. Seen a lot of that online. But again, Andre James, who played quite a few games at center for the Raiders last year, a player that a lot of people talked about as an underrated, underappreciated player. So, kind of nice to see them get an upside backup behind Bozeman, and you'd hope that if he can build on what he did last year, he could be a bit of an upgrade. Hoping that they pair those two players with, a young interior offensive line prospect that could maybe even take that job. And that would set them up pretty nicely. But Mekhi Becton, I really like the signing for the Chargers. Before I get into why, specifically with Mekhi Becton, I felt like his destination was very important. He obviously struggled in New York, had a pretty good year in Philadelphia last year. He's somebody who I felt like he was an excellent run blocker. I felt like he was an above average, like solid pass blocker. I think if he went to a team like Cincinnati, who needs an offensive lineman, but also Cincinnati's a team that throws the ball a lot, I think Becton wouldn't have worked out. I think playing in a Greg Roman offense is actually perfect for Mekhi Becton. Oh, what's up, Jen Will? Just as I was talking about you. Okay, I was talking about you when I was talking about Andre James, because you got a backup with some upside behind Bozeman. So maybe you have an option if Bozeman isn't playing well. What I was just talking about, though, is Mekhi Becton, and how I was actually somebody who thought that he could bust if he went to the wrong team. So if he went to the Bengals where they throw the ball a lot, I don't think it was going to work out. But I think the Chargers are the perfect fit for Mekhi Becton. Downhill, physical, interior running game, lots of running the football, very physical. The whole identity of the offense is very physical. Mekhi Becton is perfect. Mekhi Becton is perfect. He's playing beside a pretty good right tackle in Joe Alt. Joe Alt and Mekhi Becton, that right side is unreal. I think they're both 6'8". I think we're trying to experiment with the center position. Let me get back to you with the player. Okay, yeah, take your time, do your thing. But yeah, Mekhi Becton is perfect, man. Physical running game, downhill, a lot of runs between the tackles. Basically, Becton just fed off the fact that there were so many plays last year where we would just give Saquon the ball up the middle and make somebody stop it. Like I said, I thought Becton was above average and solid in pass protection, but unreal as a run blocker. So I'm liking the fit in LA a lot. I think it's going to work out. And yeah, if you're ever in 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, quarterback sneak to the right. Because if you guys don't know, Philadelphia, they don't just sneak up the middle. They sneak to the left side. But you talk about having Joe Alt and Mekhi Becton on the right side. That is a huge offensive line on one side of the field. So I'm liking the move. Next team we're going to look at, the Kansas City Chiefs. A very strange offseason continues. So they get Bailey Zappi, Jerry Tillery, Kareem Hunt, Juju, and Charles Omenihu. Hold on. I think it was who the hell is this? No way you're talking about Rashawn Slater. No way you're talking about Rashawn Slater. But also, bro, you guys signed 2 centers. So I don't know about that. Because you have Bozeman and then you just got Andre James, who played I think let me see how many games he started for the Raiders last year. Like, he actually played football as a center last year. Where is he? Andre James started 11 games last year, and then 16 before that, 15 before that, 17 before that. You have a very experienced backup at center, and then you still have Bozeman, who you just paid. So I kind of don't think that that's going to be the case. But hold on. Let me look. I got to look at your offensive line now to make sure you're not talking about Rashawn Slater. Because ain't no way. Oh, no, Jamari Salyer. Okay, thank God. Yeah, no, bro. You guys are just going to play Bozeman or James. Can't remember. Andre James isn't the best. Sucks harder. Really? Damn. Okay, see, so what I heard from some people is that, like, James kind of showed some upside last year. But I guess if he's signing up to be a backup, that couldn't have been the case. But yeah, I know you're not really a big fan of Bozeman. That gives you guys a couple players you're not a fan of at center. But I think you should be a fan of Mekhi Becton. That right-hand side on running plays, Najee Harris running behind Joe Alt and Mekhi Becton on 3rd and 1, that's cash money. That's cash money. That's the second most cash money short yardage situation in the league behind the Eagles tush push. But yeah, actually, General, while we're here, let me know if there's any other Chargers things you want to talk about before I pivot to the Chiefs, because man, the Chiefs thoroughly confused me. I think Brett Veach might be cooked. Now, maybe midseason I'll be why can't we just put Mac in the O-line as well? Don't kill me, bro. Don't kill me. Khalil Mack blocking. What a travesty. But yeah, okay, we'll just keep it pushing to the Chiefs, right? So they signed these 5 players, to which I say, like, Omenihu aside, is there anybody here that's, like, great at football? And I say this to say, like, Jalen Moore, do we know that he's great at football? Not really. Elijah Mitchell, do we know that he can stay on the football field? Gardner Minshew, Bailey Zappi, can we say that they're great at football? Jerry Tillery, I think he's played for the Raiders and the Chargers. Like, somebody who's clearly not really been able to find a home. Bounced all over the place. First round pick from 2019. He might benefit from playing next to Chris Jones. That's definitely possible. But good God, like, are we sure this guy's great at football? I'm not sure. Who else do they have? Christian Fulton. Hilarious, bro. Hilarious. So they have Fulton and Tillery, right? They have 2. They basically have what's it called? They have a couple of Chiefs rejects. Sorry, Chargers rejects. We lost ASJ as well. Yeah, who's ASJ? Oh, Asante Samuel Jr.? No, bro, he's a free agent still. He doesn't have a team yet. So we're still going to figure that out. But if a player like that hasn't signed yet, he's probably waiting for the draft because he might be able to get a better offer after the fact. It's like Mekhi Becton last year signed after the draft because he wanted to wait for teams to get desperate who missed out on offensive linemen in the draft. So ASJ is probably waiting for that. But yeah, man, Chiefs, weird offseason of talent acquisition. I don't really think they've done anything to get better. And sure, maybe you could say that like they ran into a super team, but they were good to beat everybody else last year. I don't necessarily think that's the case, but also I don't think that they're just gonna stagnate. I'm sorry, like I don't think that they're gonna if they just show up as they were last year, I don't think that's good enough. I think having Rashi Rice back is really gonna help. But they're really putting pressure on themselves to draft well. They're gonna roll with internal promotions to replace Justin Reed because you got Jaden Hicks. They have all their linebackers from last year. But yeah, they're replacing Tashawn Warden with Jerry Tillery. That's not a real replacement. You're gonna have to draft somebody to upgrade that spot. I think we all saw that they needed a running back upgrade last year, so they're gonna have to draft that as well. Yeah, Chiefs are putting a lot of pressure on themselves to draft well. Don't kill me, man. Yeah, Chiefs are putting pressure on themselves to draft well. They just haven't really added serious talent. Like Jalen Moore, I heard that he was up and down. That in the 5 games that he played for Trent Williams, there were some good things, but also some not good things. So, I mean, if we have to really establish like their best signing, it might be Christian Fulton, and I don't think that. No, you know what? It's probably Gardner Minshew. Their best signing is Gardner Minshew. So yeah, I'm not a fan of this Chiefs offseason at all. It's not been good. But yeah, that just is what it is. Sucks for Chiefs fans, but they're gonna have to rely on the draft to get considerably better, and they're gonna need people to play immediately, and they don't have great draft capital because they're at the back end of the first round. So yeah. Eagles signed Azeez Ojulari, restructured Lane Johnson. So the restructured Lane Johnson part of things to me is just interesting because if you just gave him a 3-year contract, actually, you know what? I should change this because it's not restructuring, it's extending. So they extended Lane Johnson, basically meaning that I don't think they're going to draft a rookie because you don't draft a rookie 3 years in advance. So they're not going offensive tackle. That kind of frees up an opportunity to spend everywhere else. Azeez Ojulari, though, we signed another Georgia defender, another ex-Giant. So from that standpoint alone, right, signing Georgia or bringing in Georgia players has been good for us. Bringing in ex-Giants has been good for us too. So pretty happy about that one. In terms of how he fits as a player, I don't think he's going to be asked to play like full-time starter snaps. But I think as a rotational edge rusher, he should be able to do fine. The only worry with Azeez is his injury issues because he's missed a lot of time in New York. But if you look at his production, he's 24 with 21 sacks. That's unreal. So they let us get another ex-Georgia defensive player, another ex-Giant. I'm really happy with that one. It's going to help. It's going to help with the loss of Josh Sweat, but you combine him. If you can get anything from Uche or Bryce Huff, absolutely anything, then you should be in a good spot next year. Next team we're going to look at Mecole Hardman. So the Packers signing Mecole Hardman, the main part of this that I want to talk about is who they didn't sign, because every time a receiver is on the market, you hear about the Packers, right? Cooper Kupp is on the market, you hear about the Packers. DK Metcalf is on the market, you hear about the Packers. Anytime any receiver is on the market, you hear Green Bay Packers, they need a receiver one. They like Jaden Reed, but they want to get a bona fide ex-receiver, free up Jaden Reed. And then what did they get? They get Mecole Hardman. Man, the Packers, the way they maneuver off seasons, I really think that like it needs to be studied because they're just lack of ambition is absurd. I actually think that they have enough on their team for people to be like reasonably optimistic about what it could be if you really add meaningful, like established talent. But they just don't. Like they're truly too old school of an organization when it comes to building through the draft. There's no excuse for this. Why is Mecole Hardman the receiver you're getting? Also, they have I feel like they have 3 Mecole Hardmans already. But here's the thing with you guys. You guys at least you guys are basically a run first team with Greg Roman. It just is what it is. With Harbaugh and Greg Roman, you guys are a run first team. The Packers literally aren't. The Packers are not a run first team. They had their moments last year where they would run the ball high volume, but they ultimately want to have Love drop back and spray the football around the field. That's not how it happens though. So yeah, man, that's not great. That is not great. Mecole Hardman, I don't even know if he's going to see the field. And again, this is the third signing they've made, right? They signed a slot corner in Nate Hobbs. They signed they signed a guard from San Fran who most people say isn't good. So the only player you can say for sure that they added that's good is a slot corner. Like it's not acceptable. It's not acceptable. There's no way this is the approach to roster building. And like for the first time, right, the Bears Packers rivalry over the course of my life has always been unpacked as this like really serious rivalry. But for the first time, I think it actually might become a rivalry because it might be even, because it looks like Chicago's headed one way and Green Bay's headed the other. The inactivity in Green Bay is absolutely absurd. Next team, we're going to look at the Bills. So they brought back Dane Jackson, slot corner. So that's dope. Little bit of depth. Again, I really like the Bills' depth signings throughout the offseason. They restructured Matt Milano. Basically, they gave him more money this year to cut off a year. So he's going to be a free agent. But nonetheless, it's a commitment to him, right? If he's restructured, then he's going to be on the team. Bro, Eckler is still on the Commanders. He hasn't been cut or anything. Like, he's going to be back next year. It's wild. Can't believe it, bro. Because even though he didn't get, I mean, he wasn't particularly productive, but he also got hurt. Like, I don't know. I don't think he had a great season, but Commanders are keeping him under contract. See, I thought they would have, but bro, it hasn't happened yet. Like, I don't know what the point would be to wait. Maybe they'll cut him in training camp, though. Maybe he doesn't make the team. But yeah, man, really what I wanted to talk about with the Bills are Ogunjobi and Michael Hecht both being suspended for 6 games. So 2 of their free agents, within a week of being Buffalo Bills, got suspended for PED usage. That's absurd. And also, what a ripoff. Like, I feel like this is a horrible sign for the Bills year, just from a like universe standpoint, right? Like, you are paying guys for 17 football games, and already within a week, you're max getting 11, right? We paid Ogunjobi, I think he got 1 year, $8 million. Michael Hecht got 3 years, $24 million. You are signing these, and here's the thing: they were gonna be like impactful rotation players. I don't know if either of them would start, but they were both probably looking at like 20 snaps a game. Premium backup defensive linemen, and those are important players in the NFL. And yeah, bro, PED. So literally within a week, I don't know if they were doing PEDs together. I don't know if it was like a turn up and like they were like injecting themselves together or something, but like crazy, absolutely crazy to lose 2 players to suspension 7 days within having them on the team for the first time. Like I said, pretty discouraging sign for the Bills. Again, from like a just energy standpoint, because what the hell, man? That's crazy. I've never seen that. So Bills, if you get to play them in the first in the first 6 weeks of the year, maybe 7, depending on when they're back, when their bye week is. Man, without defensive line depth, I think that's a serious issue for this team, because I don't think their defense has great personnel behind the defensive line. I don't think McDermott is really able to coach up lesser talent. I think the way they're built defensively, they're really going to lean on their defensive line, and their defensive line depth is now gone for the first 6 games of the year. So, I mean, if you look at their starters, it's still not bad necessarily, right? Like you have Joey Bosa, who actually, you know what? Joey Bosa might even miss. He might even miss those first 6 games because of injury. You just paid Greg Rousseau $20 million a year, so that's solid, right? You have Ed Oliver, that's solid. But man, Hecht and Ogunjobi were actually going to be like important pieces. So, okay, I wouldn't say. Okay, you know what? I thought if they did better at the receiver position, this wouldn't be the case. The way they've dealt with the receiver position, I have a hard time. I have a hard time not agreeing. Don't expect Bosa to stay healthy. He's lucky to play 5-6 games. So then, bro, you're actually paying defensive players. You're getting 11 games max out of Hecht. You're getting 11 games max out of Ogunjobi. And then you're getting what? Maybe, hopefully, he's saying 5-6 games from Bosa. That's a lot of money. That is what? $28 million this year that they're going to be paying to people that they might not get much production from. Spooky times. Very spooky times for the Buffalo Bills. But yeah, man, these suspensions, horrible twist of luck. Cowboys, they signed Miles Sanders, Dante Fowler, and Paris Campbell. Miles Sanders and Paris Campbell, I wanted to include them here to say horrible signings, not particularly good at football. I don't even know if either of these players make the team. Dante Fowler, that's acceptable. Like, he's a quality edge rusher. He's going to help. But, like, I want to highlight this to say, like, he's the good player that they've signed. I don't know if they've signed a ton of other good players. I'm going to quickly look at their moves to see if I haven't missed anybody. Okay, I like Javonte Williams, year 2 off a major knee injury. So Javonte Williams and Dante Fowler. What's the gist of Flag potentially pulling out? I'm not sure. Is this what they're talking about? Like pulling out of the draft? No, there's no way that happens. Fowler would have liked him to go to the Niners. Sure, but like he goes back to Dallas. They needed an edge rusher to replace DeMarcus Lawrence, but man, Dallas's offseason of not bringing in particularly great talents to continue because Miles Sanders and Paris Campbell are not it, and I don't think they're going to make the team. Next team we're going to look at the Giants. They just signed Jameis Winston like an hour ago. I wanted to put this here to say, like, I don't actually think this means anything because they signed Jameis to like such a backup quarterback deal. Like, he got the same money that the Pasternak got, Josh Dobbs got in New England. So he got distinctly number 2 money. But that doesn't stop them from drafting a quarterback and putting them at number 3 if they get Aaron Rodgers. They can still go after Aaron Rodgers. They can still, I mean, if they have Rodgers and Winston, then I think it's guaranteed they're not going quarterback at 3. But they can still go Rodgers. They can still go rookie in the draft. This I don't think really says very much of anything for the Giants next year. It's just a quality backup because I do think Winston is, especially for the money, not a bad backup at all. To play with his brother. Nah, man, trade war, man. Trump had to put one of his best soldiers on the Canadian border. But yeah, man, Jameis in New York, good for them as a backup. But then from Jameis' standpoint, I actually think this is awesome for Jameis to get put in the New York media because I actually think he has a personality. And we've seen him in Cleveland, New Orleans, Tampa Bay. We haven't really seen Jameis in a big market. I think Jameis is going to flourish in New York. I think his career might end in New York because I think he might find a TV show. He's going to get some opportunity to make money off being amusing in New York. So kiss your NFL career goodbye, Jameis. You're about to transition to bigger and better things in New York. I honestly, that's my first thoughts of Jameis in New York. I'm like, bro, he's going to get so many opportunities off the field. He's about to be eating big W's in the Big Apple. But also, yeah, I cannot wait to see Jameis twice a year if he's the starter. Man, Eagles defensive backs are going to rack up picks. I'm dead serious, bro. I really believe this. I really believe this, what you're saying. Speaking of backup quarterbacks, though, the Ravens signed Cooper Rush. So they signed Ben Cleveland at guard. I don't think he's good. So I actually don't think that that's a good move, but it is what it is. Ravens don't always make the best offensive line acquisitions, I would say. They lost Macari. I think they lost somebody else. I think when you add Ben Cleveland, to me, you got to draft somebody now in the first round. But yeah, Cooper Rush, a really, really fascinating approach because I always thought that Baltimore made such a point to get a stylistically similar backup to Lamar Jackson because they had Josh Johnson, they had RG3. Who else did they have? They had Tyler Huntley, right? They've always had stylistically similar quarterbacks to Lamar Jackson. They've made a dramatic departure from that approach here with Cooper Rush. Cooper Rush he's so different than Lamar Jackson, which is not something that I should have to say. to anybody watching this video. But yeah, man, Cooper Rush is going to be the backup, which means when Lamar isn't playing, they're going to go to a completely different offense, which I don't particularly hate, by the way, because I do think if you're a team with an offensive line and a running game, you can cope with having a backup quarterback. And for what it's worth, the thing with Cooper Rush is, as a backup, his record against non-Eagles teams is amazing. I think Cooper Rush started his career 6-0. So what I will say about Cooper Rush, I'm doing actually a watch along after this. So I'm doing a watch along for Oklahoma against UConn. Jeremiah Fears against Liam McNeely. We're scouting for the Raptors, and it's going to be in about 40 minutes. But yeah, no, I actually think Cooper Rush can manage a game and win it. I've seen him do it enough times. Not mad at this deal. I think it's interesting to have such a different quarterback, but the Eagles are basically in the same spot because Tanner McKee is the backup right now, and Tanner McKee is nothing like Jalen Hurts. So I don't mind. Lions signed Kyle Allen, Tim Patrick, and Craig Reynolds. So Tim Patrick and Craig Reynolds, the only thing I wanted to say there is that the Lions continue their approach of just paying the guys from last year. So they clearly love their roster from last year. They clearly must think that the injuries are the reason that things didn't work out. And maybe losing two coordinators, you want as much continuity as possible. But man, have they just brought back most of this roster? And then from the Kyle Allen standpoint, I don't actually think Kyle Allen is a viable 2. I think he's a 3. What I find interesting about that is there's a lot of chatter about Hendon Hooker getting traded. I think this kills that chatter because there's no way they trade Hendon Hooker and have Kyle Allen as the 2. No way. I don't think he's good enough to have that kind of a role. So I do think that the Kyle Allen signing is a sign that they're not going to trade Hooker. That's the main reason I wanted to talk about it. But yeah, Tim Patrick and Craig Reynolds joined the long list of Detroit players. You know what? I think I might look this up right now. Long list of Detroit players that they have re-signed. I always thought that they had a pretty big free agency class. But man, they brought a lot of them back. I'm actually going to pull it up right now. Where are we? All teams. Give me Detroit. Where is Detroit? There's Detroit. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They re-signed 8 of their free agents. Craig Reynolds, Dan Skipper, Khalil Dorsey, Al-Qadim Muhammad, Pat O'Connor, Mitchell Agude, Tim Patrick, and Levi Onwuzurike. Literally 8 players that they had that were free agents, depth pieces. They brought them all back. So strong commitment to continuity. Clearly, the Lions have a lot of faith in the team that they had last year. And I don't think it's a horrible approach. We're going to look at another team in their division, the Vikings. They traded for Jordan Mason, signed Okuda, Rondale Moore, and they talked to Ryan Tannehill. So we're going to start with Tannehill, actually, because I find it really fascinating. I talked about it last year, how interesting their predicament is at backup quarterback, because I think you have to start McCarthy. So the quarterback you bring in has to be okay with being a backup. But also, if McCarthy isn't ready yet because he's still really, really young, or if he has his knee issue flare up or something, you need a backup that's still competent at playing football. And I thought Daniel Jones was perfect from that standpoint because as much as we shit on Daniel Jones, he's won a playoff game. And I don't think he's the worst quarterback in the NFL. I think he's respectable. So I thought that would have been fine. But that belief was based on the fact that Daniel Jones is at such a low point in his career, given what happened with the Giants. There's no way he gets a good deal. Little did I know the Colts would offer him $14 million a year, but it kind of looked like the market had dried up. I thought maybe Jameis Winston would be the right kind of quarterback from an experience standpoint, because obviously he's happy to be a backup. If he has to play, he can. But the issue is with Jameis is that I don't think he stylistically fits the Vikings, because the Vikings are a structured offense, and I don't think Jameis plays within structure. Forget playing well. He doesn't play within structure. Jameis has a whole lot of fuck it in him, right? So I thought I was thinking if Flacco was maybe their only option, because yeah, he can play within structure. Yeah, he can play if you need him to. He took a team to the playoffs 2 years ago. But Tannehill, it looks like they've materialized another Flacco, because Tannehill was not in the NFL last year. Tannehill was on the couch like Joe Flacco. So I looked up Ryan Tannehill. He's only like 36. So it looks like they're going to bring Ryan Tannehill off the couch to back up JJ McCarthy. And I don't hate it. I would have hated it if they got Rodgers. I would have been a little bit scared if they got Flacco because at the end of the day, that's still a 40-year-old man. But as far as backups go for that really unique backup spot, I think Tannehill is probably one of their better options. They ran out of a lot of names. It was looking a little bit dire, but it looks like they may have materialized a backup quarterback. So that's solid for the Vikings. Big up, Joel. But yeah, the rest of their moves there, they got Okuda and Rondale Moore. Kind of a bit of a theme there with just them going for people with really, really good, like really people that were really highly thought of in the draft that just haven't quite panned out yet. And I really like that coaching staff from a player maximization standpoint. I think that coaching staff has consistently gotten the absolute most with what they could, with what they had. So I like these kind of pieces. Jordan Mason, though, my main takeaway there is that they're not drafting a running back because you don't give an extension to Jordan Mason and give Aaron Jones a big contract and then draft a running back to be RB3. So shut down shop there. Aaron Jones played his first 17-game season of his career last year. It's a bit surprising to me because he always had his injury issues in Green Bay. To come to Minnesota and have a healthy year, that's pretty impressive. I kind of get the feeling that wasn't gonna continue next year. So I actually thought the Vikings backup running back was really important. I thought maybe they would draft somebody high in the draft, but Jordan Mason for fantasy, that's one of the guys I would have my eye on because I do think he's going to see the field. And he was fairly productive in a similarly structured offense in San Francisco. And Minnesota has, I think, a much better offensive line than San Francisco, especially with the investment they made to Ryan Kelly and Will Fries. Next team we're looking at, the Patriots. The Patriots have a really serious commitment to signing like what I would say are like 72s in Madden, like Wes Schweitzer, Marcus Epps, Bradbury, Jack Gibbons. They all fall under this category. And I think there's a few other players that do as well. I'm going to quickly pull up the Patriots signings. Okay. Who else? Morgan Moses, Mac Hollins, Clavon Cason, Kyrus Tonga. Bro, they've signed like 10 people who I would say are like 72s in Madden. Pretty clear approach from the Patriots is that they just wanted to add some competence to the roster. They probably looked at the roster and said, you know what? We have a handful of decent players, but beyond the handful of decent players, there's a whole lot of shit on this roster. And I think the biggest thing about these Patriots signings is that they're getting the shit off the team. Right now, I don't think they have added a ton of great players, but they've at least at the very minimum added NFL players. So Jack Gibbons, a name that a lot of people probably don't know about, but he played, I think he's been the linebacker for Tennessee for like 2 years now, played a lot of football, played okay. He's nothing special, but Vrabel knows him from obviously 2 years ago. Garrett Bradbury, I mean, he was actually pretty trash in Minnesota, but he was trash for a contending team. If you're talking about the Patriots, a team that's had legitimately one of the worst offensive lines in football for like the last 2 years, and you just need somebody to play, maybe in a different scheme, it looks a little bit different, but he might just be average in New England. And again, that would be an upgrade. And they might need an average center, right? They're building from the ground up. Marcus Epps, same kind of a thing, average player. Like the Patriots have signed a bunch of average players in free agency. And I do think that that's not a bad approach to starting from the ground up. Let's get the shit off the roster first, fill the roster, back end of the roster out with average players, and then we go from there. So I don't hate it. Falcons, they added some depth defensive linemen and Jamal Agnew. And honestly, these players are not here to really give a whole lot of attention to when it comes to these players. Main thing I want to talk about is just how bad the Falcons offseason has been. My goodness, man. Talk about adding a bunch of 72s on Madden. I think the Falcons have kind of had the same approach. They've had a similar offseason to the New England Patriots. And my issue with the Falcons is that they're not a trash team, right? They're not they're not in the same situation the Patriots are. It makes sense for the Patriots to do that. But for the Falcons, you've kind of been fairly average. You shouldn't be doubling and tripling down on being average, but that's what they do. So I really don't love that for them. I think they're signing up for like 7, 8, 9 wins maybe again. So that is not it. Bears signed Travis Homer and Devin Duvernay. Bears signing Travis Homer. I don't know if this stops them from drafting a running back, but also like they at least they have guys in the room. Um, I I feel pretty confident about the fact that they're not going to go with DeAndre Swift for next year. I just because Ben Johnson traded him away in Detroit, I just get the feeling that the same thing will happen in Chicago. And they don't really have a guy, so I'd watch. Actually, I would watch for them as a Genty spot, low key. Um, but yeah, that's the only thing I wanted to mention with Homer. And then with Duvernay, like the thing about Ben Johnson is Ben Johnson actually is probably he's gonna get like 400 yards out of Duvernay, probably a couple big touchdowns. He's probably gonna manufacture all kinds of touches for him, receiver screens, end arounds, tunnel screens, all of those things. So yeah, Duvernay. I think in Ben Johnson's offense, the way he does things, like if you look at the history of the Lions receivers while he was there, you always have a 1 and a 2 that get a lot of volume, but then there's normally like 4 receivers after that get like 200-300 yards. And Duvernay, I think it makes sense as that kind of player. So does Olamide Zaccheaus. Jaguar signed Fred Johnson. I think signing anybody from Jeff Stoutland University is always a good idea. Johnson was a competent swing tackle. Had some good moments, had some not great moments. I think he's probably going to Jacksonville to be a swing tackle. My understanding is that they do have their starting left and right tackles sorted out. So I think that that's probably a good role for him. He probably is making more money than he would make in Philadelphia. Yeah, they have Anton Harrison and Walker Little as their starting tackles. So it's the appropriate role for a player that, had a respectable game against Myles Garrett. I'm not joking. Like, that happened. Rams signed Akello Witherspoon and Ronnie Rivers. The only takeaway I have from that is that, like, they're doubling down here on more of their talent from last year. I kind of don't buy the fact that, like, I don't love for the Rams that they've done so much standing pat. I thought the Rams had an opportunity to splash the cash a little bit. I thought that they should have gotten better than they did. But if we look at a lot of their signings, you re-signed Rivers, you re-signed a guy named Laurel Murchison, you re-signed Akello Witherspoon. A lot of bringing back talent from last year. The only really outside additions that they made, Poona Ford, Devontae Adams, and Coleman Shelton. Coleman Shelton was a Bears offensive lineman. All you need to know. That's probably not a great player. And then Poona Ford and Devontae Adams, I actually think that they're both good and they're both going to help. But there's no way that you saw how close you were to beating Philadelphia last year. And you're like, look, Poona Ford, Devontae Adams, and call it a day. We looked at where they're at financially. They had more money to spend, but they spent a lot of their money on their existing roster, right? They extended Alaric Jackson, their left tackle. They gave some money to Matt Stafford. They re-signed all these marginal players. But yeah, man, like, I don't know. I think the Rams are kind of messing up an opportunity here to get better. And we'll see what happens. The Dolphins signed Willie Gay and Artie Burns. They signed some average talent here, but actually, you know what? No, with Willie Gay, he's solid, right? But Artie Burns, that's ridiculous that this guy is still in the NFL. I just think that Burns being in Miami is hilarious, right? Because, like, sunburnt, that's a headline waiting to happen. Like, the first time he gets cooked in a big moment, streets need that headline. But yeah, off season, I talked about how Miami was going to have a hard time getting better just because of where they were at financially. And that is definitely the case because look at their off season, man. A lot of average to trash talent. I lied. You know what? James Daniels does not deserve that treatment. But aside from that one guard, whole lot of mid brought into Miami. By the volume too, bro. They've made like 15 signings, and I'm not really a fan of many of them. So that's that. Saints, they restructured more contracts because every time I've done this video, I'm talking about all these other players that other teams got. And then I'm like, and the Saints restructured some guys, right? I think they restructured one of their offensive linemen and Derek Carr, and then at some point Tyrann Mathieu, and now Cam Jordan and Devon Godshaw. They just traded for Godshaw, restructuring him immediately. So Yeah, man, the Saints, this is what they have to do to juggle the horrible salary cap that they've created for themselves. But yeah, grand scheme of things, um, that's what they have to do. They were never really going to meaningfully add to their team. I talked about that in the offseason previews. They signed Brandon Cooks. That's cool, but their receiver, I don't know. I think that's doubling down on more of the same talent. They have a lot of redundancy at receiver, right? They have Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed, and now Brandon Cooks. It's a lot of the same. So I don't really see what Kellen Moore's vision is here. Um, Based on how their receiving core is set up, I'm thinking they're probably going to have a lot of condensed bunches. Like they're going to play very like, I don't know. I feel like you have to bunch these receivers together, put them in the slot, and have them run a lot of creative creative concepts. But yeah, you have Brandon Cooks, Chris Olave, and Rashid Shaheed. Man, there's a lot of redundancy there, and I don't know, man. I think that they could have added somebody different. Niners signed Kyle Juszczyk. So this is just funny to me because this is their most expensive signing, guys. Actually, no, I lied. I think it must be what's his name, the edge rusher that they got from Atlanta. I want to say because they got Leonard Floyd. I don't know where he came from. Where is San Francisco? Okay, damn it. Nope, there's two players that were more expensive. My whole angle got messed. Oh no, I lied. They cut Leonard Floyd. Yes, so Juszczyk is their second most expensive signing in the offseason. The first is their backup tight end, Luke Farrell. I say this all to say, man, what a disaster of an offseason for the Niners. You're not spending that much money, fair enough. I don't even think you're adding good players. Richie Grant, Luke Gifford, Kevin Givens, Jason Pinnock, Mac Jones, Luke Farrell, Kyle Juszczyk at 34, like not particularly great players. I actually like DeMarcus Robinson, especially in this kind of a scheme. But man, disaster class of an offseason from John Lynch. They're about to pay Brock Purdy $60 million a year. This is going all wrong. And as a Niners hater, I love to see it. We're out here prioritizing literally your top two signings of the offseason, backup tight end and a fullback. What are we doing? That offensive line, literally, they're praying to hit and get another Pooney. Buccaneers restructuring Wirfs and signing Sterling Shepard. They're another team that's done a whole lot of standing pat. They haven't really added much from the outside world. They've got Hassan Reddick. I'm also going to quickly take a peek to see if maybe there's somebody I'm forgetting. But yeah. Oh yeah, they're most expensive. So here's their two most expensive. You know what? Yeah, they're two most expensive. No, how am I gonna word this? Okay, they're two signings from other teams that made more than $2 million. So literally, the only two meaningful additions from other teams that weren't like super cheap, a punter and Hassan Reddick. This team is really doubling down on what they were last year. And I think, one, with Baker Mayfield at his age, you kind of have to make an all-in push as early as you can because he's the kind of player that I don't think you can bank on development for. He probably just is what he is. And you have to work on getting as good as you can ASAP, especially with a player like Mike Evans and a player like Levante David and Vita Vea. Like, you have a core you should try to maximize. And I don't think they're trying to maximize them. Hassan Reddick and a punter does not make you like meaningfully better. I think they're both probably going to help, but they could have definitely done better. And then the last team we're going to look at, the Titans, cut Chidobe Awuzie, so they already are cutting bait on one piece of their free agency haul from last year. I think that haul is going to go down as one of the worst free agency hauls. And I think, they're definitely going to tear it down piece by piece. This is just the first piece. So that's the main reason he's there. But Brandon Allen, okay, to me, that is signed, sealed, and delivered. They are drafting Cam Ward number 1 overall. First, there was some drama about who would go number 1 overall. Would it be Abdul Carter? Would it be Shedeur Sanders, Travis Hunter? It's looking like it's settling into Cam Ward, but the question was, does Tennessee make that pick, or do they trade down with Cleveland or the Giants? I think the Brandon Allen signing basically solidifies the fact that it is not going to be the Giants. It is not going to be the Browns. It is going to be the Tennessee Titans. They have Will Levis and Brandon Allen under contract. Under no circumstances is that an acceptable set of quarterbacks to go into the year with. The names just keep dwindling. Jameis is off the board. The Tennessee Titans are taking Cam Ward at number 1 overall. That is as good as gold, and you can take that shit to the bank. So that's where we're going to wrap up this stream, people. Shout out to the 8 people watching live. Make sure you guys hit the like button and subscribe to the channel, In Motion Football. We've been doing these news recap streams while the free agency and trade market has been active. But with the free agency and trade market dying down, we're going to pivot more towards draft content. So we're going to do streams that are more based on like draft needs and positional, I guess. Like, I don't know if I'm going to do prospect position rankings, but I'll talk about prospect. Not really an expert or a scout or anything, but we can talk about opinions. And then, yeah, I'll talk about team needs, mock drafts, mock draft reactions, all those things. So a lot of that in the next month. So yeah, subscribe to the channel to make sure you don't miss out on any of it. I'm heading to the NFL channel. I'm heading to Toronto Hoop Talk. I'm actually, just before I leave, I'm going to drop the link in the chat. So if you guys want to hang out in about 20 minutes, I'm going to drop the link in the chat. But yeah, I'm going to be on my NBA channel watching March Madness. We got UConn and UConn and Oklahoma. So that's what we're going to be watching. I dropped the link here, so feel free to click that link. But yeah, we're going to be watching Oklahoma and UConn, but specifically we're going to be watching Jeremiah Fears and Liam McNeely. So with those 2 players, both prospects that the Raptors could draft, that's the angle that we're going to be watching the game with. But yeah, subscribe here, subscribe there, like this video, like that stream, run up the numbers. The engagement really helps. And with that, I'm out, people. I'll see you guys in 20 minutes. Take care. Take care. I'm out.